Peter with DrVoIP.com. This video cheat sheet is going to show you how to set up a ShoreTel SIP trunk using none other than Scopserv, which is a phenomenal product, but I've got like 10 minutes to do this video clip, so I'm going to do two clips. I'll do one on configuring these two devices to achieve the desired goal, and I'll come back. I'll do another video cheat sheet on a Scopserv itself. So in our simple configuration here, what we're seeking to do is to create a ShoreTel environment in which there are no traditional dial tone trunks on the ShoreTel. There will only be a SIP trunk on the ShoreTel, and the SIP trunk will connect the headquarters site with a branch office, and it will also provide dial tone and long distance local calling for the ShoreTel extension. So we're going to create a ShoreTel SIP trunk for all outgoing calls. If you dial 9, you're going across the ShoreTel SIP trunk and out the Scopserv, which has been integrated with a voice over IP 4-channel trunk to a ITSP, and also brings in a 914 DID number. If you're in extension 4XX, you live in the branch office in the Scopserv, and if you're 2XX, you live in the ShoreTel. And so at the branch office, if you dial 9, you go out the Scopserv to the ITSP. If an incoming call is received from the ITSP, it will go across the tie line and be processed by the ShoreTel. It could have been answered by a ShoreTel auto attendant, so that we can demo it on the screen here. I have it ringing a particular extension 215. So I'll now show you how to set up this configuration. Let's log into the ShoreTel, and step one, of course, is going to be to go to the ShoreGear switch in the site that we want to configure and set up some SIP trunks. So I've covered this in detail in other videos. I'm just going to point out that step one is go get yourself some SIP trunk ports on a ShoreGear switch. Next thing you're going to do is go to trunk groups, and you're going to create by saying create in the site of interest a SIP trunk. I've gone ahead and set this up already, and I'll just walk you through the configuration. It's pretty straightforward. If you've set up trunk groups on ShoreTel before, there really is no difference between traditional TDM and a SIP trunk in terms of the configuration, other than you're probably going to have to deal with some form of digest authentication. It's an oversimplification, but for purposes of discussion, through version 12, ShoreTel doesn't support digest authentication in terms of the ShoreTel registering, let's say, with a voice over IP provider. When you set up digest authentication, you're going to create a username and password that is used by the service provider, in this case our Scopserv, to register with ShoreTel. So ShoreTel is the master and the service provider is the slave. We've also set up OPX capability here, because in our little plan, extensions in the 400 range live in the branch office Scopserv. We've also need to prepend for outdialing a 9, so that the Scopserv will know what to do with that call. So we've configured 10 digits for DID, and basically access code and an area code and the various services in the trunk group that define what services are supported by this trunk group. You'll then go to your individual trunks, and you will go ahead and add a individual SIP trunk from your switch to the IP address of your service provider, in this case the Scopserv. So other than that, it's pretty straightforward to set up the SIP trunk, the basic definition. You may have to tweak the profile a little, but as you can see, if you go to the switch, you will in fact see that you have your trunk set up, you're green, you're good to go. So I will do a separate video on the Scopserv itself because it's an incredible product. It's very well documented and tech support was phenomenal. I really encourage you to take a hard look at this, but at the moment, we're going to just do what's necessary to get this to act as the border controller and the off-premise extensions for our branch office, as well as providing SIP trunking to the ShoreTel. So there are several areas that we have to deal with. One, the concept of setting up the circuit to the voice over IP provider. We've defined an account that goes to our ITSP. I've got all my credentials in here, and I'm not going to show that to you on the internet, but I will show you the one that we've set up to the ShoreTel. So in the ShoreTel, we've pointed this at the default tenant in this, which happens to be called DrVoIP. The type of circuit is SIP. It is of type friend. I've described it as just a tie line between the Scopserv and the ShoreTel. The username and password that we established in the ShoreTel for digest authentication is in fact being set up here. So we are the slave. We're going to register with the ShoreTel. And a common error is to assume that the host IP address is the ShoreTel headquarters server. Error. You are going to put here the ShoreGear switch that is hosting your SIP trunks. And that's what we have done here as well. The next, once this is configured, the next thing you'll need to do in an asterisk deployment is to set up the routes, incoming routes, outgoing routes. So what we're doing here is we have set up a route for incoming lines. If we see 4XX, we know that this in fact is going to go to local extensions within the Scopserv, which supports the extensions that we have previously defined in our system here in the range of 400. We have to provide some outgoing lines as well. And in the case of the outgoing lines, we're saying anything with a 9 plus, pointed at the SIP trunk to the ITSP. If it's a 2XX, send it to the ShoreTel system. And very straightforward to define the dial string, custom dial string 2XX. We're not going to strip any digits, and off we go. So you'll set up your ITSP interface for your SIP trunk and define the number of channels, give it a class of service, and make sure that you have checked routes for incoming and outgoing, the direct digits to the proper circuit. So at this point, let's take a look at some real examples and see how this works in dialing. So you know what you're looking at here. It can be a little confusing. This is a Windows desktop, and I have my communicator for extension 215 established here. I've got an RDP connection up to the ShoreGear headquarters server so that I can demonstrate dialing here. You can see the trunk test tool. We've got our 4 trunks, our 4 circuits set up that define the tie line between the ShoreTel and the Scopserv. And here I have an X-Lite soft phone, which will be one of my extensions on the Scopserv. So if I dial extension 215, for example, here, you'll see that we get a pop-up over here, and you can see that the short gear switch is ringing in. I'll go ahead and answer that. And we have an established phone call. You can see it on the call manager, and you can see it here on the trunk test tool. So it's an incoming call to extension 215. So let me go ahead and hang up on that. And just to show you it works the other way around, let's go ahead and use the call manager to dial. So you can see the call is ringing in from Gandalf to Gray. We get our caller ID. I can go ahead and answer that, and we have an established phone call between extension 405 in the Scopserv and 215 in the ShoreTel. Let's go ahead and terminate that guy. And I think, I guess, let's have an incoming call to the DID that we have on the SIP trunk and the Scopserv, a vocabulary tongue twister here. I'll go ahead and dial that number. We should see it ring in, and eventually it'll hit the tie line here. There's the incoming call, and we have that sent to go to be processed by, not getting caller ID on this, but I can make that happen too. And if we go ahead and answer that, we have an active telephone call. Likewise, we can hang up on that, clear, and let's go ahead and make an outbound call. Let's call ourselves. And I'll go ahead and dial that. And you'll see that that call is going out.
Thank you for contacting DrVoIP.
And we've made an outbound telephone call. So setting up a SIP trunk between the ShoreTel and an internal IP address that's going to act as the border controller as well as the SIP trunk interface. And in the case of this implementation here, we're going to provide SIP extensions to that branch office. We can do the voicemail either in the Scopserv or in ShoreTel. But as you can see, it's easy to set up. It eliminates some of the confusion that you would otherwise have setting up SIP on ShoreTel. And I hope that you have found this informative, and I thank you for viewing.